lot of parents, a lot of coaches for junior players, a lot of administrators for clubs and teams, captains, etc. They'll be working with players that will say that they want to be professional players, but maybe are going through this situation of procrastinating. So are there any tricks that well, not necessarily tricks, but attitudes, skills, processes that you see those professional athletes going through that is common among the professional athletes, or just some tips that you might have that those people can help those junior athletes to push through those procrastinations and those barriers?
Okay, cool. So the way I've understood that is that parents, coaches, and administrators in clubs often see junior athletes who claim that they want to be at a certain level, and then they kind of have some kind of barrier which is not really clear, and they get stuck. So the question you're asking me is, what's the kind of solution to that, and then how can people support? Did I get that right?
Yeah. It could be procrastination. It could be just, I guess, a misunderstanding of what's needed to get to that point.
Okay, cool. So I think the first thing first is to understand the whole process of that junior athlete coming through, because when we're young, we all like to dream. And that's not to say there's something wrong with that, but we have aspirations. If suddenly you start a sport at the age of 10 and you get really good by the time of 11, you start thinking, how good can I be in 15 years? And why not? If the trajectory is like that, then why not? But then life happens. You might have been the biggest 10-year-old. Everybody else suddenly is the same size as you at the age of 14. But you might be smaller than some of the other 14-year-olds. And, that makes a big difference there in terms of the lung capacity and the muscle and the smashing power and the speed, and the height that some people can reach. It makes a big difference. And that's something that junior athletes, for the most part, especially when parents are not really experienced, they kind of can talk themselves into a dream and expect that will go straight to plan, not really anticipating that even within a month, the first challenge will present itself where there's growth spurts or there's difficulties in training, and then there's managing school and all of those other kind of things that life throws at you. So it's a case of, I have a dream and I have no preparation at all for the obstacles that are going to come on the way. That's kind of the first thing that might happen. And it's very common that you see athletes who really love the game or really talk big and they want to do this, just fizzle out and just vanish. Very common. And parents are not really, good for that. And a lot of coaches and a lot of sports administrators are not either. I mean, if you look at, say, 100 kids who will start the sport, 80 of them will drop out by the time they're 18. 80. Yeah. That's a massive number. Imagine you start school at 11 years old with 30 people, and then by the time you get to 15 years old, which is GCSE or whatever, there's only like 7 of you left.
Yeah.
That's what it's like in sports, I think. So it's shocking when you look at it like that. I guess to put on to the second kind of element is what I see in the top athletes is that they've managed that junior to senior transition the best. Those are normally the best athletes. The ones who can come through the junior environment in the best way, they normally tend to do better at the senior level. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they're champions at junior level. There's so many top junior players who are the best in the world that fizzle out at the age of 19 or 20 because of the things I mentioned. They're not ready for that physicality. They're not used to handling all of the success. It's got to their head. They don't listen in training. They have challenges with their injuries. Maybe when they're young, they can cope with a certain lifestyle. And then when they get to 2021, their bodies can't deal with it. They've had bad stretching and rehab routines and all of that kind of stuff. But the ones who are kind of floating about in a good area at the junior level, and then they mature as individuals and then mature physically, and they learn, and they come through that senior period gracefully, these are normally the ones that tend to do the best. And we see this in players like Lindan or Chong Wei. They were not the best juniors in the world, but they were high up. But they came through that period very successfully, and it's obvious what they wanted to achieve. There are a lot of individuals who can do well at both. They do well in the juniors and they do well in the seniors. Again, it's the same category of individuals. They're just doing it for a higher level. They know how to manage challenges. They know how to be coached. They're mature enough to think. They know how to make decisions. They know how to manage themselves. They're super, super hungry, and they face challenges like champions, and that's what takes them through.
Okay, that's interesting. And in terms of trying to help parents to understand how they should be treating their children, because your kid be coming through that junior section or phase of a potential professional career is probably the most important thing, right? If you don't have that foundation in place, then it's going to be very difficult to become a professional adult. So, is there anything that you would suggest the parents do with their kids to help them have a better foundation from a mental perspective?
When we're talking about mental, we might be talking in a few different elements. We might be talking about emotional. We might be talking from a skill acquisition perspective. You might be talking from a maturity perspective. There's lots of angles, right? If a new, if two parents came to me with a newborn baby and said, "We want this baby to be an athlete," and they say, "What advice could you give?" I guess the first thing that I would ask is, "Why do you want the baby to be an athlete?" Is it because you fell out as an athlete and now you want to live vicariously through your kid? That'd be the first thing. I want to check the motivations of the parents, why they're putting their kids. Is it because you believe that sports can be good for your kid, or the sport that your kid does is going to be good for you? Is it a bragging competition where you want to go to your school reunion and say, look, my kid is playing Wimbledon or whatever? Yeah. So that's the first thing, you check the motivation. If genuinely there was an honest and a good answer for that kind of question, and you've got a young kid, the first thing that I would suggest is make them do lots of sports. All kinds of sports. If it's badminton, let them do tennis, let them have the opportunity to play football, squash, hockey, basketball, martial arts in a controlled setting, anything, darts, snooker, anything, because the child is going to develop creativity, IQ, strategizing, analyzing, decision making, confidence. They're going to feel good. They're going to be able to transfer their skills. So if they play hockey and they learn how to pass a hockey ball, guess what? They've already learned something about how to pass a football in a football game from hockey. They'll learn the same thing in basketball. They'll be able to use their hands and feet better. So you're teaching them a lot of really, really good skills. And also as well, you're teaching kids when they get to that kind of competitive age to handle success and handle loss, which is really, really important for an individual because we all win and we all lose, right? And sport is a great place to kind of build that in. So if, say, a child is 7 years old, let them do 7 or 8 different sports. When they kind of get to 10 years old, filter that down, bring it down to 5 sports. When you get to kind of 14, bring it down to 3. Get to kind of 16, bring it down to 2. Get to 18, 19, it's time to decide, bring it down to 1. And hopefully by that point, if the child really loves sport, they love the feeling of doing sport for the sake of doing it, and they have a drive for it. Normally, by this point, they would have been very good because they'd already been doing sport for about 10 odd years. Athletics as well, obviously included that. But athletics is a good one. Track and field. So, and swimming, of course. So, yeah, by that point, you've already had a child who's really fit, is able to kind of strategize and organize, able to have good decorum and good character that's developed through sport, hopefully. And yeah, they might be getting serious about sport around the age of 16, 17. They might have already got serious before, that's fine as well. Everybody's different. But those are the kind of the guidelines that I mentioned. If they're 18, they should be really doing one sport and hopefully it should be already competitive and rising up through the ranks, getting ready to play at senior level.
Yeah. So if you've got a kid, so I'm imagining a parent at the minute, they've got a 13, 14-year-old who is part of the national squad for badminton. Are there any common themes that you see with either the challenges that those children will face or the challenges that they will face further down the line that could be addressed in those early years of them playing the sport?
Yes, 100%, 100%. I'm thinking about the previous question about what can parents do, and I came at it from a very technical standpoint, but let me come at that from an emotional standpoint. Parents are the children's first pillar of support in their lives. They're the first line of defense.
Yep.
So in that sense, parents have got to be the best sources of inspiration and emotional support for their children. That's really, really important. Because often as well, before we start to learn how to think, the first voices we hear are not our own, our parents. So by that, what that also means is that the way that our parents speak to us is literally the blueprint for how we think. So if you've got parents saying, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, you silly, you stupid, you idiot.
Hmm.
Child's blueprint is, oh, I shouldn't do this, I shouldn't do this, I shouldn't do this. I'm stupid, I'm silly, I'm an idiot. That's their first blueprint. Now, if they keep that blueprint or overcome that, who can say, right? We don't know. We don't know. There's no way of knowing that. But this is a serious point of nutrition here, that the most supportive parents, they offer words of encouragement, inspiration, motivation, assurance, kindness. That is a solid foundation for children. Now, how does this impact at a higher level? I have seen a really, really, really big number of athletes really thrive and do well. And they have that assuredness and that confidence from a very stable family background,
Hmm.
where their parents only ever offered them positivity.
Okay.
And the most anxious athletes, and the athletes who get scared easily, or the athletes who don't rely on themselves and trust themselves, the athletes who don't know how to regulate themselves, normally would have been spoken to like crap by a parent or both parents or someone within the family system.
Hmm.
It's not something I can prove with fact. There probably is some research on this in the clinical psychology spectrum or in the kind of family psychology spectrum. But from my experience, that's normally the case. There is an extreme to this as well, where what happens when parents are too supportive?
Okay.
What happens where children are being spoiled? So this is a case of my child is an angel. You know, they don't fart, they don't shit. You know, you know, they're the best thing since sliced bread. It's like, well, hold on a
Hmm.
second. You know, you've got to be just and fair with your child as well. And if you want them to grow into mature adults, you've got to be able to challenge them in the most healthy way. So if your kid is misbehaving,
Yeah.
you don't want them to continue behaving that way. You can't say, oh, well, then you're the best. There's got to be a way for those parents to challenge the behaviors while showing unconditional love and support for their child. So the child knows that they feel assured and they're confident with the love that they're receiving. Plus they're motivated to do better. Plus they actually want to change. Plus they can actually see the consequences of their actions.
Hmm.
That is a recipe for a very healthy and successful child.
Yes. So it's not these parents that, their kid loses a match or they got dropped from the team and then they're off trying to get the coach dropped or get rid of the coach so they can get a different coach in, and now their kid's going to be picked for the team again.